Jordan Moore, Sean Cody Keeley, or John Jackson back in the house. JJ, who's part of our Saturday broadcasts, but good to have you back on Trojans Live, show that we started together back in the day. So back in your seat where you should be. Guys, this was the game where we were supposed to learn some things. So now I'm curious what we learned. After the first two games were a little bit more exhibition vibes. This was very much not a Big Ten road game in a hostile place. There was some adversity along the way. What did you learn, JJ?
Well, I love the fact that the defense stepped up with defensive turnovers, touchdowns.
Yeah.
I just think the defense is the first thing that really stood out to me, that the way they played and contributed to the score.
I second that. JJ's are all over it. He told me before the game he expected the defense to have a good game, and then the defensive line played like that. Really, I think for the first time in a long time, I saw the defensive line take over a game. They were pass rushing. They come in, like you said, Jordan. They came in waves. They would rotate a group out. The young guys would come in, and the young guys were putting pressure on the team. I think there's an aspect of, like Lincoln said, about learning how to play with a defensive line that can pass rush, what you can do off that, how you can benefit. So on that end, and then offensively, I thought it was a really mature game for Jaden. No turnovers. He was good with his feet, had the long, those passes were beautiful and controlled kind of the pace of the game. Now, some of the red zone things where they got kind of hiccupy down there, those are things to work on, but early in the season, I think a lot of good signs from the offense.
I think big picture, this was a game that we had circled as far as can USC take care of business on the road, let alone throw in the wrinkle of a 3-hour weather delay. I think, and we've seen this a lot online, but people were saying this is a game that USC loses last year, not only because of the hiccups with the weather, but, the second half wasn't as strong and things got a little dicey there, but USC finds a way to win. So I think on the whole, that's a step towards the right direction, progress in that sense.
How do you think they handled it all? Do you think the game would have played out any differently if there hadn't been a delay? It really was a unique circumstance.
No, I think that because of the delay, it allowed the players to go back in the locker room, maybe, understand the adverse situations, and we still got to play. We still got to show up. Sean, when things go wrong and the plan, these things are all scheduled out from the beginning.
Yeah.
The morning you get up, what you eat for breakfast. Everything. And if something goes off kilter, you sometimes think, that's an excuse for us not to play well. And I think they handled that part, the adversity part of how the game started, and just got down to business, which that's what they came there for.
Yeah, that's a good word. The excuses were built in. They didn't take any of them.
Yeah, I think
there you go.
And JJ's right. It galvanized them. It brought them together as a team. I remember the game against Washington State where it started hailing or raining or something, and the whole team comes together and starts jumping. Sometimes those distractions can help you and galvanize you and team and bring that energy into that. Looked like they got out to a good start on Saturday.
What's wild, too, is the last time that USC had a weather delay not at home was 2012 Syracuse. Also, coincidentally, the last time that USC won east of Colorado, 2012 against Syracuse. So weird coincidences with that one.
You brought up some of the defensive issues. It was kind of a funny game in the sense that, you look at it and they had the one stop that ends up not being a stop because they had the penalty on the punt. So you had basically a 3-and-out there where Jakeem makes his first big play. That ends up being a longer drive. You have the one touchdown, which is so that sort of fluky play that Eric Gentry probably felt like he should have had, but then the ball's on the ground and sort of nobody reacted to it from USC. But then once sort of Purdue started getting momentum, it was tough to slow them down. But did you find the defensive issues fixable, JJ? Was there stuff that you're worried about that's not fixable or harder to fix?
Well, D'Anton Lynn, I think, is all over it. He knows that it wasn't a clean game defensively, but that gives you coaching points. And, Sean, even after a win, if the coaches start getting on you, you tend to respond the next game after. And I think that's what you're going to see on Saturday, and they're going to need it because Michigan State offensive line is very good.
Yeah, and you got to learn what you got. I think you're learning as the season goes on that, okay, now we have this defensive line. It's a weapon now. Was it Purdue's offensive line? Can we do it? Can we produce the same kind of pressure all year? That's the question that's coming up because then if you're Dan Lynn, if these guys can produce this kind of pressure, I don't have to bring people as much. I can run my defenses. I can get my corners on those guys. And I think that was part of the problem on Saturday was maybe these secondaries give them a little bit too much space, especially if the guy Brown was under pressure. So you got to get up on those guys and you learn that as a season. And this is a great time to learn those kind of lessons where, okay, I know this is a weapon now. This is a tool in my tool chest. I can use this defensive line and know how to work the back end at the same time.
And that is something, I mentioned it at the very end of the game, Keely, but identity, right? Everyone always asks this question of coaches, what's the identity of this team, or fans and media like to talk about it. And they're learning it too, right? Mm-hmm. So, I'd almost rather have a team that had kind of obvious strengths and weaknesses, because then you know what to lean into and to protect. And so, yeah, if you start with that pass rush as an obvious strength and it becomes the identity of this defense, hey, we're leading the nation in sacks, they're second, in tackles for loss, they're just way up there in all these categories. If that's a case, then that's something to go with. Whereas maybe in the last couple of years, they just never really found a defensive identity.
Yeah, and you said it at the top, like the first two games, how much did we actually learn? That also goes for the players as well. Think of how much rotation they had at corner. Jaden was the first time he played 60 minutes of football. They're still learning how to play together for a full 4 quarters. So I think there's also just like a chemistry piece a little bit. Like, yes, obviously you want to know who you have, run through those reps in the first 2 games, and the talent maybe isn't as strong. But now learn together, learn what you need to do if you have that identity with your defensive line, and then kind of take that step each game.
Sean's a big fan of progressive meals. This is like a progressive schedule here, JJ. That's what's kind of fun about it. I feel like the second opponent was harder than the first, the third opponent was harder than the second, and I think the fourth opponent is harder than the third. So it's kind of a nice, staircase up here for this team. But as you said, a bigger challenge awaits on Saturday night, albeit at home with Michigan State.
I saw Lincoln on the way out, or on the way in. I'm sorry, on his way out, and I asked him, "Is it fair to say that this is a matchup of the 2 most creative offensive minds in the Big Ten?"
Yeah, it's interesting.
I mean, and I asked him how late are you staying up at night? He said just a couple hours. I said okay.
I have a lot of respect for Jonathan Smith. I mean, he came in there. He came into the Coliseum with some Oregon State teams and really, played with us a little bit at times. He's a talented play caller.
Even 2022 as well.
What did any of that have to do with my eating habits?
Oh, I just always try to bring it back to subjects that you're comfortable with. You don't like a progressive meal?
Unnecessary shut up.
You don't like a progressive meal?
I think it was a take on my eating habits. I don't like.
We can explain to you a progressive meal after the fact.
Off air.
Yes, thank you, JJ. Good to have you back, man. We're going to fill your seat with some USC men's golf. They've played 1 tournament this year and they won it. That's next on Trojans Live. One final segment of Trojans Live. Jordan Moore, John Jackson, Keely Yor, and Sean Cody. We'll play a little musical chairs here. They're moving around. I get to sit next to my buddy JJ for our over-under. JJ, you're going to have to explain how over-unders work to Sean. He never understands this, so it's a good thing you're here, veteran that you are. Our over-under is presented by Pechanga Resort Casino, proud partner of USC Athletics. Okay, so our over-under is 299.9 passing yards per game this season for Jaden Mayava. So he's at 329.7 right now. Big Ten has not had a 300-yard passer since C.J. Stroud in 2021, but USC, Caleb Williams did it twice in his 2 years at USC. So basically, will Jaden Mayava be a 300-yard passer this season?
I'm going to take the over. I got 2 reasons.
Yeah.
The 2 reasons are the receivers.
Yeah.
Lane, Lemon, best receiving combination in the country.
Boom.
Yeah. I mean, what more needs to be said? But yes, I will also take the over as well. Because if you think about it, too, the way you laid out the data, the only year that hasn't happened under Lincoln Riley was last year, and that also had a quarterback change. And, I'm going to take the over.
I'll go under. I think
it's a tough league to do it in.
Yeah, they didn't do it against Purdue, 280, right? What do you have, 280 for the week?
And he over 300 on both
over 300?
passing and
oh, okay. Never mind.
Yeah, he was over 300 this week.
Okay.
Yeah.
Never mind. But I just think it's a league where, you got to be able to run the ball at some point. And I think you saw that on Saturday. You saw a team that, were willing to run the ball, even though it wasn't looking good early. They, Lincoln kept going to it and they figured it out and put the game away with the run. So I think they just have a little more trust in the run game this year.
They were putting up massive yardage in that first half. I mean, Lincoln talked about it, but the deep balls that he threw were pretty perfect, and the ability, to hit receivers in stride on a deep ball. We almost don't see that anymore, JJ. I feel like a lot of quarterbacks sort of prefer the underthrow, play it safe, guy comes back to get it, but he was hitting Jacoby in stride.
Yeah, I think the defenses usually roll the corner up so the receivers can't get that free release, which is something I think Michigan State better do this week. Otherwise, I think it's going to be a big day for the receivers again. But I I agree with you. I mean, the defensive coverages these days just make it so hard for the receiver just to take, a straight release without
get behind
any pressure. Yeah.
Yeah, everything is coming back, and then they all get the PI calls coming back too. It makes it very hard on the DBs. We have an 8 o'clock kick on Saturday night. No excuses for the fans. Everyone's got to get out there. But the next week is a 9 a.m. Pacific kick. It's a road game. It's at Illinois, so it'll actually kick at 11 a.m. local time. Asking the guys. Kick times, do players feel it? Was it different for you kicking at 8 p.m. versus 9 a.m. body time? What was your history with that?
I think me and John are probably in the same way. You want to rather play early. I just feel like always wanted to get going early in the morning. I felt your juice was going. You knew your clock and what you had to do. Those late ones, man, those coaches try to squeeze in every second of meeting they can, and I hated that. I hate nothing worse than a football meeting walkthrough on a Saturday morning.
So the time change plays in our favor this week.
This week, it's got to play in our favor, right? Because it's 11 p.m. body time for Michigan State. I mean, just apologies to their fans. I saw some people on Twitter that still think that like USC gets to make this pick.
I know.
And it's just like, I don't know how people don't know this by now, but that is not how this thing works at all. The game times are handed to us. We just got one today. So 11 p.m. is rough for their fans. And, yeah, for their players, obviously, that has to be difficult. And then, next week, I guess, would be the opposite, JJ. USC at Illinois, that's going to kick at 9 a.m. body time for the Trojans.
See, in a perfect world, Michigan State, for their practices this week, they have to practice when they would like to practice under lights, to get used to the environment. But this week they're going to run their practices at normal time, 2:00 in the afternoon, because the kids have to go to class and everything else, so they can't change that schedule. So they don't have a chance to, otherwise the coach would have to call them back at 8:00 at night to practice. They're not going to do that.
Well, for Keely and I, as long as there's no more delays.
Yes, please.
As long as we just kick at the scheduled time, I think we'll take that for the rest of the season. Hey, thanks to everyone that stepped up today to make Trojans Live happen. We're a little bit undermanned, but made it happen, made it look good. JJ back in the house for it. Good to have you on Trojans Live and everyone watching. You heard from the coach. We want to see everyone at the Coliseum on Saturday. Thanks to Ben Conroy, everyone back at the ESPN LA studio. You can follow USC and Trojans Live on YouTube all season long. That's it for us. For Sean, for Keely, for JJ, I'm Jordan. Fight on, everybody.